Hello, okay, I just finished doing a video a minute ago going through the setup of the editing students data on the database through the UI. However, I've just finished filming and realized there was no audio. There was no microphone audio, as it wasn't even connected. So, instead, I still have the video of going through it. So, for this video, I'm going to go through explaining exactly what I did bit for bit, and I can just explain the methods here, because I encountered a few problems when doing the other one anyway that you'd need to skip through. So, first I made a edit button, which it can just be any kind of button, and I used this as both the edit and save button. So when you click it, it would change modes and be in a save mode, and then when you click it again, it would go and save that, and then it's back in an edit mode, so you can click it and edit the data. So if we look at the panel here, I also added a name point, a name text box, and this was right at the very start, as I've decided if you're editing the data, it's easier to edit it while it's in this box rather than up here, because this is more of a display location because it's got class and age, whereas here it's just the name. So we can have the name, age, class 1, class 2, and class 3 all listed in here, and any data you want to edit, and then we could always hide this in the future as you're editing. So let's go to the code now and have a look at this. First, I give the edit button just a look to it. You don't really need to do that. And then I just give it its event, which is edit student method. And this is the edit student method. Now, if you want, you can either copy this down or you can watch the video actually going through making this without any audio. So this edit student method first goes through all the text boxes in the student info list panel and sets them all to read only as false. This is so you can actually edit the boxes. I don't think at the moment I have a point that actually sets the read only to true. However, you can do that, so then you just can't edit the information in there when it's normally there. And then I set it to the save icon. So this is when you click the edit button. So this would be the actual. When you click the edit button, this is what happens to set it up into an edit mode, in a sense, and it switches to a save button. From there, if you click the button again, and it's in save mode, in a sense, it first makes a string array of the length of 3, and this is a classes array. Now, I had to do a weird method to get around this, but there is probably an easier method, or new method, or, well, a better method. However, this is what I decided to make in the end for this. So what this does is it first, again, makes the classes array, makes a classes index array, which I left as a string, as I realized after that when you read it from the database, it's as a string. Even though it's an integer, it's read as a string. And then when you store it to the database, you need to store it as a string. So otherwise, you'd be converting it from a string to an integer, from an integer to a string, just a minute later. So there's not really much point for that. So I left it as a string. You could always do a try catch to check it is, or a dot parse to check it does actually go to an integer, to be sure there isn't any problems there. However, if it found it in the first place, it will be, and we've already done a check later on. Anyway, so it takes the data you've got in the classes text box here, and it replaces class 1 and then the colon, which is this part, because that's just the part at the start. However, don't forget, when we actually run this, I realized after, it also has, of course, the teacher's name right here. So I decided to split it at this part here, and then after that I trimmed this space off of the end using a dot trim, and then you just get the name itself of the subject. From there, I then passed this subject through as a condition into the read where in the server, and found what the ID was of this. So let's look at the code for that. And you'll see here I split it, then I trim the end, trim the space off. So I split it here. I replaced the class 3, trim the end, split it. First it splits. So it splits, trims the end, removes the class 3, stores that into a string array, and that is just going to be the two parts of it. So that'll be the teacher's name and the class name. You don't need the teacher's name, so you just take the class name, which is this bit, so the 0 index, and store that to the classes array, which is just the 3 classes. Then it goes through each of those, gets the columns, it sets the columns it wants to look through as ID, so it wants to get the ID column, and it does in classes where the name is equal to the class. So let's look at this and get up the, where is it? Here we go, let's load up SQL Management Studio. I thought it was already loaded up, but so you'll see what it will do is it will look through the named column, and where it finds the class of that name, it will give back the ID of that class. So let me just connect my database here on the side and go into databases. So here I'm just loading up my classes table here. So here you'll see we've got the names column of all the classes, and then we've got the ID column. So what we want is the ID from knowing the name. So we just put the name into here so we do the condition where name is equal to, let's say, physics, and then we get back the ID of what that is. So it then checks the ID, and it checks if that return value is null. So if it couldn't find the subject, it just does a message box saying class, and then the class number could not be found in the database. Check your spelling or capitalization. And then it updates the students. And actually, we don't need the capitalization part because I found out it still finds it anyway. So, and then it updates the students list, which you don't really need to do, but it would be good to have. And then it returns, so it never actually gets to this part where it saves the data. However, if the data was fine, it was an integer that isn't null, it stores that to the class's index. And then it uses class's index to the 0, 1, and 2 into the rewrite data, and it rewrites where the full name, age, subject 1, subject 2, and subject 3. We do not need to rewrite the ID, as the ID is the part where we actually are doing, like where we're checking that. So we never want to rewrite the ID for that, because that's where we are writing to. We're using the condition of the ID equaling the ID text box text. So you'll see here for the name, we do a similar process up here and just remove the name part, just so we get the actual student's name. Same with the age there, and then we put the 3 classes indexes in, and then we do server.readWrite, and then we put the server database, the table, which is students in this case, because we want to write to the students table. We do the columns, which we want to do full name, age, subject 1, subject 2, and subject 3. As you can see, full name, age, subject 1, subject 2, subject 3. And then we go ahead and so we want to store that and rewrite that data where ID is equal to, and then whatever ID is loaded at that time. Because remember, we put this text box up here called ID, just to be able to store it on the page, so store the student's ID on the page. So it's whatever ID is up there, and that will be that student that you were just changing the data of. So it means you can change all the data except for the ID on the student. And then it goes back to edit mode and updates all the students list. So when we run this, you can see it in action. Let's say we want to change Samuel Young, and let's say we want to change his age to 21. We can just do 21, save, and it's saved, and there you go, Samuel Young, age 21 is updated in there. So if we click this again, it updates up here as well. We could always have it update this, however, when we update the actual panel itself for the information, before in our method we use a sender of the button and we get what the button's name is. So that could be a little bit harder unless we iterate the for each loop through all the buttons and find the button with that name and then use that as the sender. However, that's not needed anyway, because all you have to do is click on the button again and there we go. So let's say he takes physics instead of maths now. Let's change class 2 to physics instead and save, and now click on Samuel Young, and he's doing physics twice. Oh, it's because of the teacher name. I'd need to know the teacher name, which I'm not too sure what it is at the moment. Anyway, this works how it is. Let's say you wanted to change someone's name a bit, you could easily go into here, and at the moment we don't actually have it say name, so we can make that fixed now actually. So when it puts the student's name in, we want to do just something like this, and put name. There we go, just like that. And now it says name there. So let's say we want to change her name a bit. Someone spelt it wrong in the database. Save that, click on it again, and there you go. And it automatically updates in there before. So there we go. That's the video on editing different students in the table of the database. I do have the original video which just goes through actually doing this, however it has no sound, and that's why I've made this video. So, but it does go through a step-by-step process of actually putting it together. So that'll be it for this video. We've done deleting now, we've done editing, and all that's left is to add new students. So in the next video we'll go through that. And then that'll be it for the user interface, and then we can start looking at other parts after that. So thank you very much.